Okay, welcome everybody to the October Alternative Voting Methods Statewide Task Force meeting. We're happy to have you here. It's day 20 of the federal government shutdown. I hope I'm not counting the days when we get to the November meeting. We have a couple things on the agenda. I thought we'd talk a little bit about Making Democracy Work Day. I don't know if any of you have things in particular you want to follow up on that about. And then the big topic for today is enabling legislation so that cities and maybe counties can run a proportional ranked voting election. And Andrea will be here if she's not already. Andrea
She's here.
I'm
Great.
here. Yes, I just
Great.
have my camera off.
Okay, I can't see everybody while I'm also running the slides. So we start with the meeting norms, but you've already signed in and accepted these meeting norms, more or less. So you know, so I think we're gonna have a fine meeting. I'm not too worried about it. Our last meeting was September 15th. And we talked about the letter to the Secretary of State asking for rules to conduct proportional ranked voting and approval voting elections. I'll follow up with that in a later slide. There were one of the two Denver election proposals made the November ballot. We have an update on that, which will be coming up. The U.S. Fair Representation Act has Joe Neguse as a co-sponsor, and we talked about part one of the primary election reform study draft. And we got some good feedback on that. And we were going to possibly talk about part two today, but this other higher priority possible legislation came up. So we are focusing on that instead. Nobody has complained to me about not going over part two, so you still can, but meanwhile, we have the agenda for today, focusing on the legislation. So in terms of the state league, Beth Hendricks led us on. That was great. Jane and Katina have both led us on, started this meeting in the past. Tony is here. I'm the task force facilitator. My name is Celeste Landry, and I'm going to stop sharing, and so that we can see each other while we do introductions. And would somebody else be willing to call on people to do introductions? I can start. I've been the facilitator of this since the beginning, and I don't feel obliged to be the facilitator, but so if anybody else wants to step up, let's talk. I'll pat, and is there anybody who'd like to moderate the introductions? So you don't have to hear my voice all the time. Neil?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Pat going next?
Sure. Hopefully nobody pops in so I can look at two things at once. I'm Pat Venturo. I've been part of the Boulder League's voting methods team for a number of years now, and really excited about trying to get people educated about proportional representation. I'll just turn it over. You want me to just,
I'll call on people, and I'll call
okay.
on next. And I've been active in voting methods since the 1990s, first with ranked methods and now with approval voting methods and proportional representation and star voting. I've been active in election integrity and election auditing since 2002 and introduced risk limiting audits to Colorado. And I'm on the Bipartisan Election Advisory Commission for the Colorado Secretary of State representing the league. And we haven't met this year, and this reminds me I need to call and ask why. We're supposed to meet 3 times a year. You want to go next? And then Andrea.
I'm sorry, who did you say?
I said Don.
Oh, Don. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Don Parcher. I live in Louisville, but I'm actually in Maryland right now, helping my mom. But I've been supportive of instant runoff voting or ranked choice voting for it seems like 15, 20 years. So I'm very interested.
Super. Thank you, Don. How about Andrea next and then Jay?
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Wilkins. I'm the legislative liaison with the State League. I'm sorry, I have my camera off. I'm having like some weird allergic reaction with my eyes today, so I'm not camera ready. But I'll be here in the background or behind the dark screen. I'm excited to join the conversation today about some possible enabling legislation around implementation of STDs, and our action and advocacy leadership team actually just had a conversation about this afternoon. So this is good timing. I'm happy to join you all.
Super. Thank you, Andrea. And I think Cleo, I got your name wrong. Sorry.
No, that's okay. It was up there, Jay Cleo, because my husband and I trade off on the Zoom account. But my name is Cleo Corsizar. I'm in Pueblo, Colorado, and definitely interested in learning more about rank voting and what's happening with the league and the work in this direction at this point. I've spent numerous elections in the county clerk's office, deconstructing and working on the local voting system in that way. And I'm sitting here today, and thank you for welcoming me.
Welcome. Thank you, Cleo. Barb next and then Clayton.
I'm Barb Winery. I'm the co-director of voter service on the state board. I'm also a voter service coordinator for the League of Women Voters, Greeley-Weld County. Live up here in Greeley. I'm always interested in voting and what's going on with voting. And each time I learn a little bit more that I understand with alternative voting, but I'm certainly curious about it. I do think it has a lot of possibilities and anxious to hang in there and find out more about it.
Fabulous. Thank you, Barb and Clayton, and then Izzy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Clayton King. I'm recently been working towards starting a new organization called the Alliance for Competitive Elections. Our theory of change is wrapped around the theory that alternative voting methods allow for more parties to participate in the process. However, more parties should be part of that stakeholder process as well. And so trying to build coalitions around parties to participate in the conversation around alternative voting methods. And so again, new organization, happy to be here and excited to listen to what's happening in the state. Thanks.
Welcome, and thank you, Clayton. Izzy, and then Tom.
Hi, everyone. My name is Izzy Cook. I am Rep. Tone's aide, House District 27. We received an invitation from Celeste, so we were happy to be here, just here to take notes quietly in the background, hear what you guys have to say, and thank you for having me.
Fabulous. Welcome, Izzy. Tom, and then Tony.
Hi, I'm Tom Alley. I'm in Broomfield. I'm a member of RCV for Colorado, Vets for All Voters, and League of Women Voters, Adams County. And I'm a proponent of ranked choice voting and proportional representation.
Fabulous. Welcome, Tom. Tony, and then Loris.
I'm Tony Larson. I live in Denver, and I am the liaison to the many task forces from the state board.
Fabulous. Thank you, Tony. Loris?
I'm Lori Stevens, and I belong to the Boulder League, and I'm new to this group. I have a longstanding interest in voting methods, and also I'm very interested in audit procedures.
Thank you. And indeed, welcome, Lori. Now it makes sense. Lycan, I have next.
Deborah, yeah.
Yes.
I'm in Durango, Colorado. I'm a member of the La Plata County League, and I've been attending these meetings, and I'm still hopeful that we'll get some education events going eventually in La Plata County around alternative voting methods.
Fabulous. I think that's everyone. If I missed someone, let me know.
A few follow-up comments. Izzy, Rep. Titone was here at the last meeting, so we're happy to have continued representation from her office. So thank you for coming. Deborah, Daniel Klein was signed up for this meeting. He's also from La Plata County, right? I think you know him maybe.
I have exchanged emails with him.
Okay. Anyway, maybe if he doesn't make it, you can tell him what happened at the meeting.
Okay.
Clayton, I love competitive elections. I'd love to have a long chat with you about competitive elections. And I think that, people are interested in competitive elections if they think there's a chance they can win. And with proportional representation, more voices can be heard and you can have more people running for that. So yeah. Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to say before we go back to the general slides? Okay, feel free to, jump in anytime you have something to say. See if I'm doing this right. You should see the meeting introduction slide.
Yes.
Okay. So we always start off with like some little news. So LWV Denver has now taken a stand on the change the ballot measure to change the 2 winner council contest to 2 single winner contests. They officially oppose that ballot measure. And if you want to read more, you can go to lwvdenver.org, then go to voting on the menu, go to ballot issues, and then there's a thing to click where LWVD stands. And I don't know if Tony, you or Andrew wants to say anything about that or not.
I can't add any more.
Okay.
That you just said.
Denver has a number of ballot measures, so I hope that the Denver voters go and look at the LWV Denver Vote 411 and
they have several on infrastructure issues.
Yeah,
and they had to do them separately, depending on what the issue is. So yeah, that's what makes the ballot sort of long.
Yeah,
but as I told everybody that because we only have 2 statewide ballot issues, they get a respite and they can spend their time looking at the Denver voters.
And your vote counts more if other people don't vote. So you should definitely vote every election.
Right.
So far, there seem to have been 2 unsuccessful attempts to send our LWVCO letter to the Secretary of State. This is the one we worked on in this group, asking for rules and procedures on proportional ranked voting and approval voting. And I hear they're now going to try emailing it to the recipients with a return receipt requested. So let's hope that it works this time. I did talk to somebody in the Secretary of State's office today who said they're not going to make any rules. They're not going to, I mean, we can ask, but they're not going to do it until they're required to do it. And so that will require legislation, which is what we are going to talk about later in this meeting. And then the Boulder County League has a webpage on proportional representation. I had this link in the last meeting, but here it is again. And if somebody wants to put it in the chat, that's great too. Okay. Some upcoming events. We are in the midst of the Courageous Colorado Activation Tour. These are in-person meetings across the state. We'll talk a little bit more about this later in the meeting. But 2 of them were in Boulder County today. And I know Neil and I were at one. It was not super well attended. There were 5 people who were not, there were like 18 people signed up, but only 5 people showed up who were not speakers at the event. So Tuesday, November 4th is election day, and there's a very interesting vacancy quote election in Commissioner District 5. Its election is in quotation marks because the League of Women Voters was opposed to running this kind of election because it disenfranchises people based on their political affiliation. It's a government-run election, which is doing that. If it were a party-run election and it disenfranchised people based on parties, that'd be one thing. But this seems bad to have the government disenfranchising people in an election to fill a seat. There are two things coming up on November 5th. In the middle of the day, there is a...
Celeste, are you sharing your slides? We're still on meeting introductions in the shared slide.
Oh my goodness.
No, I've got
Oh, is that
exactly where
problem
you
for me
are.
only? Oops.
Yeah,
My network is not happy when I'm in this location. Excuse me, go ahead.
Happy to know your experience, Neil. Sorry you're having it. Okay, moving on to November 5th. There's a new publication out by the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, which advocates for proportional ranked voting to elect our Congress. This is a big deal. The American Academy of Arts and Sciences, their elections working group, is advocating for proportional ranked voting, which we're trying to get enabling legislation for. I mean, like, trying to get it for Congress is a huge lift, but it seems like we should at least get it for cities and maybe counties in Colorado. So anyway, if you would like to find out more, you can go to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences website and check out the report. It's on their website, and you can also go to this panel discussion. I'm signed up for it. So middle of the day in Colorado.
Where are those links? I mean, did you send those out to us on your information about the meeting?
No, I did. I sent in the information about the meeting, I did send a link to the report, but I didn't send a link to this panel discussion.
I don't know if you know how to do it, but can you put that link? Because it's hard for us to write it down.
Let's see if I can do that. I think I can't. I think it's hard for me to do it right now, but I'll do it at a break time. Okay.
Is that Eastern?
All of
Eastern Standard Eastern time?
No, these are all Colorado time.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And the other thing is, these slides are in. If you go to the Alternative Voting Methods Task Force, there's a folder that has all the slides. So if you click on that folder and you click on today's date.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but
no,
I was interested.
That's fine. Okay. And then if you want to spend all day working on voting methods, that evening, there is a film called Majority Rules 101, Introduction to Electoral Reform. I think this is the same Majority Rules film that was about the Alaska election. I'm not sure. And they actually don't talk about majority very much, which is good because majority is a very problematic term. But I've heard that the Majority Rules film has been updated with information, I guess, from the 2024 election. So I was planning on going to this event also and the other one. And then in June, we have a national convention in Columbus, Ohio. So, okay, our next meeting date, just to give you a heads up, is Monday, November 17th, our regular third Monday of the month. And possibly we'll talk about part 2 of the primary election reform study. Possibly we'll talk more about this legislation idea that we're talking about now. Okay, lots of people are putting things in the chat. Are they all, is somebody helping me out with the links?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Dom is helping us.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. So we always show our position because this is how we advocate for things. And the national position on voter representation electoral systems has a strong statement about supporting proportional elections, proportional representation. So it's in boldface here. You can read the whole thing if you want to, maybe some other time but look right here, the last paragraph, the LWVUS supports enabling legislation to allow local jurisdictions to explore alternative electoral methods. And that's what we're talking about today. So we don't have to look very hard for justification for supporting this bill that we're going to talk about. Okay, first we're going to do a little follow-up on Making Democracy Work Day, and we have one of the speakers from Making Democracy Work Day here, Andrea Wilkins, encouraged us to join with LWVCO's legislative action. Amber McReynolds is an elections expert and also is or was the director of, or the head of Vote by Mail or Vote from Home, something like that. And she was previously the Denver elections director. And I was going to talk a little bit about Landon Mascarenas from Courageous Colorado. But if anybody wants to talk about anything else here, now's a good time to do that before we move on. Okay, moving on then. So Beth also said that there is a Colorado Politics article about Landon. It just came out today and she put it in the chat, but a lot of you weren't here, so I'm going to copy it and put it in the chat again. There, you should have it now. So Landon Mascarenas is the face of Courageous Colorado, you could say, but we, the League of Women Voters, veterans, what's it called, Tom? Veterans for Voters or something like that?
Veterans for All Voters is the national thing, and then Veterans for Colorado Voters is the Colorado unit.
And Civico is another group that is strongly allied with Courageous Colorado. And so if you go to the LWV Colorado calendar, you'll see all the Courageous Colorado listening tour events. So there was a spring listening tour, and it was just to ask, how does your community define courage and representation? What reforms do you believe will create a more responsive and representative democracy? And now we are on the fall activation tour, and they compiled the results from the spring tour, and they list the ones. I just went to the event today in Boulder County. They list the events that have floated to the top, and they say, okay, now we'll talk about a couple of them in small groups. And what will your community look like they used two different dates, 2028, and then another time they talked about 2030. So what will your community look like in 2028 after the desired reforms are implemented? How will your community have improved, or, what's good? And then, they also talked a little bit about what steps are needed to get to this 2028 vision and how can Courageous Colorado help. So some things that Courageous Colorado might do, especially for small communities, is provide some funding or some organizational structure. And then they may also help with lobbying for enabling legislation. For instance, proportional ranked voting was their in the discussion. Did anybody go to the East Boulder County one today?
I did.
And
Yeah.
Molly Fitzpatrick, our county clerk, was at the Boulder one. Was she also at
No,
yours? Okay,
but there were like 18 people there. It was
great.
a bigger group, and they introduced it with Ken Buck speaking. Did he come to yours too?
No, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, he came and gave an introduction. So that was motivational, and they broke us up into groups for Longmont, Lafayette, and Louisville.
And what topics did you end up dreaming about for 2028 or?
Longmont and Lafayette looked at ranked choice voting. I mean, Lafayette it has to be proportional representation, RCV, and the other one, I'm forgetting. I can't remember what Louisville ended up with, but with another topic. Yep.
And did Longmont do
RCV.
both of? Okay, because they want to do single winner and multi-winner. Okay, great.
Right.
Does anybody else have anything they want to say about Making Democracy Work Day? Because we're about to move on to, or about Courageous Colorado. Okay, let's move on then. Just to remind everybody what a ranked voting ballot looks like. You rank your candidates. Number 1 is your first choice and number 2 is your second choice. And it may be that only your first choice gets counted. Like in the New York Democratic mayoral primary, if you voted for Mamdani first or Cuomo first, then they only saw your number 1 choice on the ballot. So the number 1 ranking is the most important. And there are different kinds of RCV that all use this same ballot. We often distinguish between single winner and multi-winner, but even within single winner and multi-winner, there are different kinds. So the Fulcrum magazine online has an article about what is ranked choice voting that that is from the state league. Actually, it came from the Boulder County League originally, but then is under the state league name. So you can watch videos on all different kinds of RCV. And then the one that we're particularly interested in for this meeting is the proportional ranked voting one, which would result in proportional representation. So Tom mentioned that Lafayette would go to a proportional kind of ranked voting. And that's because right now they elect, I think it's 4 council members at one time, or 3 or 4, I'm not sure. And in one election. So you vote for up to 3 or vote for up to 4. And that's considered a winner take all election. It's a block election, it's called. So if people vote cohesively, if they don't pick one person from this side of the aisle and one person from that side of the aisle, or one person from this faction, one person from that faction, then the 40% of the voters is the plurality in this pie chart, and they could elect everybody. And that leaves out 60% of the population, versus the proportional image here only leaves out 5% of the population. But the good thing about proportional ranked voting is that those 5% of the people, they may pick their second choice may get elected. So even though their first choice might not get elected, if their first choice is eliminated, then their second choice could get elected. So it turns out that a lot of people, almost everybody, gets somebody to represent them in a proportional election. Somebody say something? Okay. So now we're going to talk about enabling legislation, which is kind of, details, weedy kind of stuff, but it's, if the county clerks are just not going to run an election unless they have the backing from the Secretary of State. So
Barb has her hand up.
Yeah, I have a quick question before you move on. And that was about the proportional voting. I'm really interested in that, and I'm interested in that for possibly for our municipal elections in Greeley. But we have staggered, positions on the board. Does that not work in that situation?
So in the city of Boulder back 100 years ago, we had staggered elections. We elected 3 people at a time for 6-year terms. And we used this proportional ranked voting method.
Okay.
So unless the only thing is you have to elect multiple people in one ballot contest. So if you're electing one person per seat, then can you vote for up to 3 or vote for up to 4 right now?
No.
So
no, it's only one. There could be 3 people running for. It's divided up into wards.
Yes,
we have 4 wards, and a representative for each, 2 at large.
So the 2 at large, if they run together, there would be a little bit of proportional representation. For 2 people, you don't get very much proportional representation. Usually you get 1 from each of the competing groups. But
maybe I'll have to look at another, or else change the whole way we, do the elections. I mean, and that's kind of like probably a 2-step. First, the approach, and second, how they run the election.
Yeah.
I'll talk later about it, but thank you.
Barb, you're in Weld County, which
right.
Has 5 county commissioners.
Right.
And if they're all elected in single winner contests, and if Republicans make up 55% of the population, they can take all 5 of the seats, leaving 45% of the population unrepresented. So if we used proportional ranked voting to elect the county commissioners in Weld County, I don't know what the partisan breakout is.
Well, I will tell you, it's about 45. Whatever it is, it's over 50% unaffiliated right now. And then it's breakdown between that other 50%, about 45 Republican and 35 Democrat, I think, or maybe it's closer than that. It's a lot closer now that we've had fair redistricting, but I don't, once they do away with the Voting Rights Act, that was always my plan B. So I'll get back to you.
So the whole redistricting question is very interesting because proportional representation takes away the gerrymandering problem. You can't gerrymander a multi-member district. Like if you either are going to elect, you're going to represent the population, just
whoever
yeah.
Well, I think that's an absolute plan B for everybody now. So that's why I'm really sticking with this.
Thanks for coming. This is
yes.
Keep talking to people in Weld County.
Oh, I will.
Okay, so let's talk about this enabling legislation. So the current situation is that we've had some required ballot measures or legislation making the jurisdictions change their voting method. So both Prop 131 and Rep. Bob Marshall's county commissioner bill said, you will use this kind of RCV or that kind of RCV. And they both got rejected. And legislators are wary of mandating any particular voting method for any elections. So they don't want to do that, and that's okay. I understand that local governments can decide what to do. Okay, but meanwhile, right now, a local government can and has been allowed to use a ranked voting method ever since House Bill 1378 took effect. And that HB 08, that means the bill passed in 2008. So we've had this law on the books for a long time, 15 years or so, getting close to 20. Okay, and the law is in 1-7-1003 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. There are 2 stated ranked voting methods allowed. One is instant runoff voting for a single winner contest. That's what Boulder uses for their brand new mayoral contest. This is what Fort Collins is going to use this year, and they have a lot of candidates running. That I'd love to have somebody from Fort Collins on this call to talk about that. Maybe we could get somebody from them from there for next month. That would be an interesting idea. Okay. And then the second kind is a proportional ranked voting method called single transferable vote. Don't worry about the name. Just we're starting to use the phrase proportional ranked voting because that's more descriptive, and that would be for a multi-winner contest. So like I said before, there are many kinds of ranked voting, but these are the only 2 that are allowed in Colorado. So let's talk a little bit about the history of IRV. In Boulder, in 2020, we had an election and voters adopted IRV, but the county clerk said, I don't have to run that election. And the city didn't want to run the election. But fortunately, the legislators got on the job and they passed some enabling legislation for instant runoff voting. And this law requires the Secretary of State to promulgate rules for instant runoff voting elections. And it requires county clerks to coordinate those elections for municipalities who request it. And I think it hasn't fully taken effect yet. They moved out the date for multi-county cities. But Boulder is in a single county city, and it held an IRV election in 2023, and it even conducted a risk limiting audit. And Neil is our audit expert. So if you have questions about that, I've witnessed the audit, but Neil can answer all your questions. Okay, so why should we have more enabling legislation this time for proportional ranked voting? Well, several jurisdictions, especially in Boulder County, have expressed interest in getting similar enabling legislation for the multi-winner proportional ranked voting method that's in our statute. Tom, how many people at today's Courageous Colorado meeting were from RCV Longmont or just from Longmont? Do you have an idea?
Oh, it was about half of them.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I would totally expect them to show up, so good. And they are very active, as you can see here. They have been asking the city council to hold a study session on the 2 types of ranked choice voting that they want to use. They want to use a single winner for their 3 ward council members, and then 2 years later, hold a multi-winner proportional ranked voting contest for the other 3 council members. And that study session was approved, but there was no date put on the calendar for it. And now they're waiting for the November election to happen. And I guess that they could change their mind depending on who gets elected to the city council. So RCV for Longmont is watching the city council contest very carefully and has, if you go to their website, they'll tell you who has said they support their having the voters vote on whether or not to change to 2 types of RCV. Any questions about Longmont? Lots of activity there.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
if I'm understanding this right, half of the city council will be elected by single winner IRV and half will be elected by multi-winner. Is that right?
Multi-winner, yeah, yes,
Proportional ranked voting?
yeah, yeah.
Or they just want to try out both methods?
Well, what this does is it allows some proportionality, and it also keeps the ward system. So right now they have 3 ward members and 3 at large, but 2 of the ward members are elected one year, and one of the at large is elected that year, and then 2 years later the other ward member is elected and 2 at large council members are elected. So it makes more sense, I think, to have everybody, if you're going to keep wards. And one of the things about making changes is you have to balance out how many changes do you want to make? And I think Andrea will talk about this later today. How many changes do you want to make? Maybe we don't want to change the number of ward members and the number of at-large, but what they are going to advocate for is electing all the ward people in one year's contest and electing all the at-large in a separate one. It sounds like a great compromise to me. So anyway, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
And then in the city of Boulder, which is now no longer the biggest city population wise in Boulder County, it's behind Longmont now. The Boulder City Council has been asked multiple times this year, including by hundreds of people signing petition and people speaking at city council meetings and meetings with city council members, to hold a study session on proportional representation. So I know the Boulder County League has been asking for multiple years also to hold a study session on proportional representation, but I think we're getting some traction now. We've also offered maybe Longmont and Boulder could join forces and have a joint study session. So I don't know, throwing ideas out there. We'll see. We're creating a buzz. It's great. And then there's some other things happening have happened in Boulder County. The Superior Home Rule Charter Commission inquired about the county clerk coordinating a proportional ranked voting election when they wrote up their charter. And they were told, sorry, the county clerk doesn't have to and will not coordinate a proportional voting election, which is, again, why we need enabling legislation. And then another thing that's happening in Boulder County is that there is a big effort to put on the ballot next year a measure to increase from 3 to 5 county commissioners. Right now, there are 4 options offered in statute for electing the 5 county commissioners, but none of them include a proportional voting method. And that's preferred in the League of Women Voters of Boulder County program positions. And because county elections are run by the county clerk, they're self-contained. They don't have to talk to other county clerks. Extending the option of ranked voting to counties seems like an easy change. Granted, offering another option for electing commissioners is a different new thing. But if you look at our county commissioners across the state, the blue counties, which tend to be the populous ones, tend to have all Democrats. The red counties have all Republicans. And one-party dominance in county government is probably not a good thing. You're not hearing, nobody's holding you accountable necessarily. This was a big problem in Broward County, for instance, Florida. They're a solidly Democratic county, and somebody needs to hold them accountable, but it doesn't happen. So I don't know if anybody wants to push back on any of these things I'm saying, go for it. I love hearing contrary opinions. By the way, there's going to be a TEDx CU 2026 event on April 4th. And the topic is on the contrary. So it would be great. I hope that somebody talks about proportional representation at that TEDx conference. We'll see. I actually applied to speak on proportional representation after asking lots of other people to speak, and they rejected the application. They said only 2% of applicants were accepted. So it'll be interesting to see what, on the contrary, topic ends up being about. Okay, so it's not just Boulder County. Denver has a 2025 ballot measure to change their two-winner at-large council contest. But right now, Denver doesn't have the option to adopt proportional voting because there are no rules from the Secretary of State. We need that enabling legislation.
I mean, let me just say that they have the option. They are a city and county. Their clerk could decide to do it however they wanted to do it. So I wouldn't agree with that.
They had this came up when they had the IRV ballot measure. There was talk about the two at-large council members getting elected using proportional ranked voting, but so maybe you're right. Maybe that would have happened, but it sounded like meanwhile there was a second effort to change the two winner at-large council contest to two single winners. So yeah, Denver can do it, absolutely. But would they? I guess
Boulder could do it too. It's much harder for Boulder because they run, they ask the county clerk to do it, and the county clerk says they won't. But the city of Boulder could do it.
But the city,
we're back to STV versus IRV, but yeah.
Yeah, the city's not going to do it. They don't want to run elections.
Sure,
but Denver does run elections. So yes, you're right. They could do it. I think Denver is happy to have guidelines from the Secretary of State. So,
or Broomfield for that matter.
Yes. Okay. And then Broomfield, they were supposed to have an instant runoff voting election in 2023, but they didn't get enough candidates for any of the seats. And then this time they canceled it because of the risk limiting audit question. But, back in 2023, if they had had a multi-winner proportional voting contest instead of single winner contest, they would have had a more competitive election. Clayton, talking to you here, and there would have been more choices for voters. So, and then also Courageous Colorado, they're going mostly outside of the Denver metro area. And they're hearing a lot of interest in proportional representation from small and large communities. Colorado Springs was specifically mentioned today. I think La Plata, maybe Gunnison was also mentioned. So, okay. So now let's talk about the how. We would write a bill, and a possible title could be Concerning County Clerks Conducting Proportional Ranked Voting Elections. They always use the word concerning after a bill concerning. So we would definitely want to phase in the implementation of proportional ranked voting. Single county municipalities could start, like if this were to pass in 2026, single county municipalities possibly could have their elections in 2027. Multi-winner county commissioner elections. So you would elect 2 county commissioners or 3 county commissioners at a time. Maybe that could happen starting in 2028. And then the multi-county municipalities, that's the heavy lift. That's the hardest one to implement because you've got to coordinate between multiple counties. Littleton is in 3 counties. Longmont is in Boulder County and Weld County. It's the hardest lift, but municipalities are already authorized in statute. We just need the county clerk, the Secretary of State to write that legislation.
I would just suggest that it's not that big a lift. It would have been a lift before the IRV legislation went into effect because we didn't have a way to aggregate to collect all the cast vote records so that you could do a centralized tabulation. But given the ability to do that, yeah, you have to arrange with 3 different counties, but municipalities do that all the time already. So yes, you have to get agreement from 3 counties, but it's just not that much of a big deal compared to, the general issues of how to audit and how to actually run it.
The Boulder County Clerk today was grimacing a little when I mentioned multi-county municipalities. I don't think she had a problem with single county municipalities or multi-winner county commissioner elections, but she was grimacing a little bit. And she used to be president of the County Clerks Association. So, this may have come up. We have not run any multi-county municipality IRV elections yet. I don't think those rules have been written yet, or I don't think the deadline for them has happened yet. Do you know,
Right,
Neil?
but the deadline is coming and it will be implemented, and it's not
Okay.
like rocket science. So
Okay, so once it's done for what you're saying, it's an easy step to do to go to multi-winner proportional. If
That's
you've
So
got
is that just 2 counties or 3 counties or?
any city that's in multiple counties, like I think Aurora maybe, or
Erie.
Erie? Okay, I
Erie
just
is
wanted
it-
some examples of what.
Yeah.
Okay, and I mean, I know there's problems down in the southwest corner of Weld with a lot of growth between all the communities in the different counties. So
Clayton has his hand up.
Yes.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in and ask about the level of support you are seeing or would expect for this type of legislation at the state level. How big of a battle would this be to try to get this pushed through the General Assembly?
Maybe Andrea, would you like to take that question? I'm happy to take a stab at it. There are a bunch of steps, Clayton. Like we have to get a sponsor, but the main thing is that we're not requiring any jurisdiction to take on a new voting method. We're just giving them the option to do it and having the Secretary of State write the rules for it. So, the Secretary of State might not like to write the rules, but if they're trying to serve the jurisdictions that want to hold these elections, this is coming down the pike. They need to do this.
Well, and the thing I would add too is that by getting those rules in place, we're really just facilitating their ability to enact power that they already have under existing law. We see the lack of rules and the lack of required coordination at the county level as a big impediment to, this really taking hold. And, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of desire amongst, many in the General Assembly to kind of see this play out on the ground in, in municipalities and, kind of smaller scope elections, and to learn from that experience. But without having those rules in place, we're really preventing that from happening. So we think that we have a solid argument here that there would be support for within the General Assembly. I do think it's going to be important for us to figure out what the Secretary's office, what their stance might be on this, and if they would be supportive of this concept. I think it is pretty clear that, they're not going to do anything unless they have a legislative mandate. But, one of the things that we talked a little bit about this afternoon is kind of trying to get a little more insight into where they might stand, because we expect that to be a question that any potential sponsor would have, is where the Secretary's office is on that. And I think that will affect if we can get them on board with it and get them to see the logic in the lack of rules preventing this from really taking hold. then I think the General Assembly is like more likely to come on board too if they know the Secretary's office is supportive.
Clayton, one of the issues is that it's already mid-October and the legislators are already getting their bills written. You're allowed 5 bills in no questions asked. And so those bills are pretty much already decided and they're working on them. And so it's a little late to be asking people to do this. However, most years there is an elections omnibus bill, which has 50 pages, 100 pages long, lots of elections issues. And so this could possibly be, especially if we don't include the county commissioner changing, dealing with adding a 5th option to how to elect county commissioners. If we just limit it to enabling proportional ranked voting, then it could easily just be added to an elections bill, if the big elections bill, if there is one. And I don't know if there is one. I don't know, Andrea, if you've heard.
I haven't specifically heard, although I'm inclined to think that there might be. I don't believe we had one last year. So I think whether it's part of an omnibus bill or if it ends up being more of a standalone approach, we see this as a pretty targeted effort to just, kind of bring to life what is otherwise sort of a dormant power in existing law. Like we just have to get the process in place. So, counties have got that directive and, they've got guidance on how to carry it out.
You say we didn't have an elections omnibus bill this past year, but we had Senate Bill 1.
Well, that is true.
It was the Colorado Voting Rights Act, which said a lot about elections. So we worked hard on that one and it passed, and we're feeling better about elections in Colorado because it passed. But
absolutely.
The good thing about proportional ranked voting is it is very well aligned with the Colorado Voting Rights Act. So one thing we might want to do is I heard Julie Gonzalez today on the radio talking about elections, and we could ask her as sponsor of SB 1 if she would be interested in, continuing that effort by carrying this enabling legislation. So that's an idea.
I think that is a great idea.
And then the other thing is, although you're only allowed 5 bills, if the leaders or the leaders are feeling kind, or I don't know, whatever, you can get more bills through than 5. You have to ask for a late bill, but you can do that. So, so let me go. So let's talk a little bit about county commissioner elections, because this is a timely issue for Boulder County. The Colorado Constitution, by the way, so that's not going to be changed very easily, requires that 2 county commissioners be elected in 1 year and the rest of the county commissioners are elected 2 years later. It does not require commissioner districts. So right now, the statute requires commissioner districts, but the statute can be changed by the legislature. The Constitution cannot be changed by the legislature. That has to be changed by the voters. So probably what we would do is if you're electing 2 and 1, the 2 county commissioners, if we had proportional ranked voting, could be using a proportional ranked voting method. And the 1, you could use the current method, you could use instant runoff voting. That's less important, I think, than the bang for your buck that you get with proportional representation. Suddenly you'd have more voices at the table in all 64 counties. It would be great. Or I guess 62 counties. We got 2 counties that are county. We also, we have some weird things going on here. We got Weldon, Pitkin that are home rule counties, and we got Denver and Broomfield that are county city combination things. So I don't know how they would work exactly.
Neil has his hand up.
Yeah,
Yeah, one piece of information that's always relevant and especially relevant now is cost. Do you know what um, the cost assessment for the IRV bill was, which is kind of similar to this one? And, you know, do we have a solution if they balk at something to try to squeeze into the budget?
so as you know, Neil, we use two voting systems in Colorado, Dominion, now named Liberty Voting, and Clear Ballot. Clear Ballot is planning on using the free RC tab to do their tabulation if they need to. The
Free and open source, let me say.
Okay. Okay. And then the I don't know if it's open source. I think RCV Resource Center has it, but they give it out for free or something.
No, it's open source.
Oh, okay, good, good.
Yeah.
And then the Dominion / Liberty Voting, it's a little unclear. There was going to be a statewide license that the state would purchase and then divvy up the cost among the counties that would be using it, but the bill said make an effort to do that, and that didn't happen. So Boulder County made its own deal with Dominion at that time, and Larimer County has made its own deal with Dominion / Liberty. So and it may be that they're not paying for it because but somebody needs to check on that. So the software cost might be zero, but the voter education cost is a lot. But you know,
so my question is about the cost of the bill itself, because the bill doesn't require that anybody even run an election, but it does require the Secretary of State to do testing and rules and stuff. So the Secretary of State is going to say, oh, this is going to cost money, and give it a fiscal note.
Yeah, do you know?
My question is, what was the fiscal note for the IRV bill, and what might this one be?
Andrea, can you look it up and put it in the chat?
I just pulled it up, and there wasn't an appropriation that was required for 1071.
There was or there was not?
There was not.
That's because the Secretary of State is self-funded. They do fees, and then they collect fees on the business side, the records side, and then they pay for their own elections to a large extent, right?
That's
right.
Great. Thank you, Andrea.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I mean there's some expenditures that are going to impact the Secretary's office, but they were in the out year for 1071, and it looks like it looks to me like it was generally some employee related costs. I can put the link to the fiscal note in the chat though, so everyone can take a look. But the cost of potential legislation is certainly something that we do need to be concerned with, because, you know, really anything that's got a fiscal note is going to be a problem. So, you know, we think that this is something, given the way that the Secretary's office is funded, and the fact that this is a pretty targeted technical change, we're pretty hopeful that this isn't something that would be particularly costly, but it's definitely something that we're going to have to work through if it turns out there are some costs, because there's just no budget room for it this year, as everybody knows.
Or next year.
Or next year.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about the tabulation software. The voter experience and the ballot layout are exactly the same, whether it's a single winner or a multi-winner ranked voting contest. But the software to run an IRV election, which has already been certified by the Secretary of State, like Boulder used it and Fort Collins is using it. The software is the same for the single winner as for the proportional ranked voting election, except you click the multi-winner option instead of the single winner option, and you say how many candidates are to be elected. You might have to get more sophisticated election reporting results software, but the tabulation software, I mean, you can get the results. They might not be as pretty as they are now, but Cambridge has been using proportional ranked voting since 1941 to elect 9 council members and 6 school board members. So you don't even need software to do it, it turns out. And the Secretary of State would have to certify the multi-winner portion of the software. That has not been certified. So that's another thing, along with writing rules, you have to certify the software. And you know, we mentioned all this in the letter that we sent to the Secretary of State, that we're going to email to them again for them. So hopefully they'll get it this time. Post-election audits. Neil, you want to talk through this?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of always been in my mind the stickiest piece here. We pioneered risk limiting audits in Colorado a couple of, well, over a decade ago, and they're excellent and they're rigorous when implemented properly, which we're not quite doing. But doing them for instant runoff voting was a challenge, but people figured out how to do it. Boulder did it all by itself with help from experts. The state has now implemented auditing for instant runoff. By the way, this is one reason why the term ranked choice is very confusing, because you can audit an IRV single winner ranked choice contest, but you can't do a risk limiting audit efficiently of a multi-winner ranked choice contest, because you can't figure out what the margin is, which is kind of crazy. And there are various proposals for how to deal with that rather unfortunate fact. So I've been talking to experts about this, and fundamentally it's a difficult thing to do. We're not actually required to do an audit of every contest. I suppose in a weird situation, if that was the only contest in an entire county, you might be forced to do it, but I'm not really worried about that. So this is kind of a stumbling block, but and there are other methods that are proportional, like proportional approval voting, that are very straightforward to calculate the margin and at least know, you know, how well your auditing has worked. But there are also some other very interesting Bayesian options that are not necessarily risk limiting for STV. So I'm just going to say it's complicated. They will have a job on their hands to figure out how to audit it, and they will have lots of people offering to help them make those choices.
And they may go to sort of a traditional audit, which is we're going to make sure that some random sample of ballots, the paper ballot matches what how the computer read it, and not do any tabulation, but just pick 5% of the ballots, but a random amount, a random selection of them or something like that, which is what places used to do before RLAs. So.
Well, you mentioned 5%. If anybody proposed that, I think the clerks would rant and scream, because doing that as a random selection of individual ballots is a really large amount of effort, certainly for any large county. So there are better methods than that. I think we could help them do something that was, you know, that was not necessarily convincing, but certainly credible effort.
Thanks, Neil. Okay. How come? Okay. So the proposal that we're talking about is not an official league proposal right now, but the league is studying it and we're talking about it. It's worth talking about for sure. And Andrea, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I can give kind of a rundown of the conversation we had. So the Action and Advocacy team consists of me, Linda, Linda and Kathy, Tony and Beth. And we have a biweekly meeting where we just kind of discuss the overall administration of the Legislative Action Committee and our overall advocacy efforts. So when the idea was raised by Celeste to start moving forward on possible legislation, we'd kind of been talking about the possibility for a while, knowing that the Secretary's office was not likely to promulgate rules, and the counties were not required to coordinate with municipalities and special districts without additional legislation that provided that mandate. So we had hoped to get, a little more clarification, I guess, and just, a direct answer from the Secretary's office as to, where they stood on the issue and, maybe get some insight into, what their position might be if we were to move forward with enabling legislation via the letter that you all were, involved in crafting, and that was originally sent out mid-September, I believe. I don't know what is going on with that letter, but for whatever reason, it is not reaching, the individuals that it was directed to within the Secretary's office. So we did discuss that today as well. Since regular mail does not seem to be working, it is going to go out under Beth's email as a just an electronic document with a read receipt requested. So hopefully it will finally reach everyone. We expect the answer there to be that no, they will not move ahead without that legislative mandate. And from there, we're just hoping to open a dialogue with them about, kind of next steps and their stance. Because as I mentioned earlier, we fully expect that as we approach possible sponsors, one of the things they're going to want to know is where the Secretary's office stands on this. So that being said, our discussion about moving forward with the legislation is something that we've kind of had in the back of our minds, knowing it would likely be necessary at some point. We talked about whether, it made sense at this point in time. As Celeste mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, it's clearly in line with our positions, so no question there. But just sort of thinking through, politically, did the time seem right? And obviously, we've got a lot of concerns right now about anything that might cost money. So that's kind of where our focus was. We are very much in favor of moving ahead. As I already mentioned, we see this as, basically an administrative barrier for municipalities and special districts to, implement STV, under their current authority or their ability under current law. So we see it as a pretty targeted technical change that we hope does not cost much money. Obviously, we'll need to do some investigating there to kind of figure out what the costs would be, and if there are costs, how that will be dealt with. But overall, we're very much supportive of the concept. I think our next steps really that we would like to see happen is for all of you, the Alternative Voting Methods Task Force and the Voting and Elections Issue Area team within the LAC, we will want to ensure that there is consensus on the language that's being proposed for both the one-page summary document and the proposed draft legislation itself that Celeste has shared out with the Action and Advocacy team, that there's consensus around that language and that approach. And once we have that, we can put it out to LAC for review and a vote. And then once we've got consensus from the full LAC to move ahead, then we'd begin our process of securing sponsors.
Andrea, would it be okay to not share all of the rest, the actual suggested bill language changes that was part of the proposal we sent to you, and just have what's on these slides be approved? Would that be okay for the Alternative Voting Methods Task Force? Because some people come for one meeting, some people come for all the meetings, and so the elections and voting LAC subgroup is much more of a in the details, in the bill language group, versus this group is, a lot of people are here for education. Maybe if people think that it's a good idea to proceed, would that be a good enough vote for
Yeah,
this?
I think that's actually a really good point that you
Okay.
made, Celeste. Certainly we want coordination and communication between the task forces and the LAC issue area teams. We also understand that there's a lot of overlap in membership between those two groups. So, we want to ensure that this group is informed, understands approach, and, basically kind of the, sort of the high level concept. I think the slides are a perfect way of demonstrating that. As far as the LAC issue area team is concerned, though, I do think that we really need to make sure that we have consensus within that team.
Absolutely.
Before we make a recommendation to LAC that this is something that we are asking for your support on to move forward with. But yeah, that's an important distinction. So thanks for clarifying that.
Okay, so now is a great time for people to talk about any concerns or changes that they have with this, the ideas that we've suggested so far. And I know Andrea has one. Let me see what else. Okay, just finishing up on this slide. Any enabling legislation needs a legislative sponsor. So we've talked about maybe somebody from Boulder County doing it, or maybe somebody from, but they seem to have all their bills already, or maybe somebody who did the Colorado Voting Rights Act doing it. And this is also maybe the chicken or the egg question. So Boulder first adopted IRV and then got the enabling legislation. We could go that method, or we could say we want to adopt proportional ranked voting. We want to work on the enabling legislation while people are talking about adopting it. So, I mean, we can do both paths at the same time, or we could do one first and then the other. But I feel like we're creating a big buzz here, and especially with our polarized situation in the country right now, and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences coming out saying we need proportional ranked voting to elect members of Congress. This is a timely question. So do you have questions or comments on the proposal that we've talked about? One of the things we have not delved down deep in is whether we should include in this enabling legislation a fifth option for counties to elect their county commissioners. And what I heard from Andrea earlier today was, let's leave that out of it. That's adding a wrinkle. Let's just get enabling legislation, make it mirror what House Bill 1071 did. And we can come back later and work on getting a fifth option for electing county commissioners. I always want everything now, but
and Celeste, on a personal level, I don't blame you at all. We actually were kind of we were all joking about that in our meeting this afternoon, that it is sometimes frustrating, the pace, but I think the action and advocacy team feels far more comfortable in our approach and success in the path of keeping this focused to getting the rules in place for STV, because it's already something that's authorized by law. Right
Yeah.
now, it's kind of laying there dormant because people don't feel like they've got the guidance or the ability to move forward. And we see that as a technical barrier that has a fairly easy fix. I think if we were to go broader and try and at the same time pursue a multi-winner county commissioner authorization, it just, not that that's not in line with our positions and also a priority, but I just think that if we expand too much too fast, especially in a really, really tight budget time, it's going to get problematic. And so that's where we came out on our discussion today.
And I think, so those of you who don't know, a lot of legislators go from the low paying state legislative position to the high paying county commissioner position, which is, you know, you might be able to bike to work instead of driving to Denver or flying if you're in Durango or whatever. So county commissioner positions are really seen as a step up from the legislature, and everybody in the legislature, unless you're from Broomfield or Denver, they're looking at possibly becoming a county commissioner, and they care a lot about those bills. And so I think we would end up adding a big wrinkle to this legislation if we did that. But I can ask. Okay, so how do people here feel about asking the elections and voting team of the Legislative Action Committee to advocate for enabling legislation, taking out the extra option of a way to elect county commissioners? So we would limit it only to cities for now.
Makes sense to me.
Maybe I will stop sharing so we can see everybody, and you could do a thumbs up if you think that's a good idea, or
Barb has her hand up.
Barb, I don't see anybody disagreeing.
No, I just had my hand up to vote. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I didn't know if you're calling for hands, a show of hands or what, but that's my vote.
So, Izzy, I don't know if I'd love to hear if you have any ideas on this. I hope you report back to Rep. Titone about our meeting. You know, because you are in the legislature with Rep. Titone. So, yeah, if you have any comments, we'd love to hear them.
No, I don't necessarily have anything to add. I will say that Rep. Titone wishes she could be here tonight, but she's currently on a work trip, so I'm here in her place. And I've enjoyed my time so far, getting to have all you teach me about this. It's something I'm not very familiar with, but obviously, as Les said, it's something that has been gaining more and more popularity throughout the country right now. So I think everyone in the legislature is kind of keeping an eye on it, trying to stay up to date on the conversations that are going on. But other than that, no, I don't currently have any recommendations or anything.
Okay, well, let's stay in touch.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Is there anything else we want to talk about? That was basically the last slide. The last slide said, thank you for coming. So I guess we'll call it a night. You can stop the recording then.
Okey-doke.
We're ending 5 minutes early. Wow.